So Curry is in a new building. It's beautiful. It's
Yes,
absolutely
it is.
475 North Marine Boulevard is where we're going to be. Wonderful air condition. I just want to say wonderful. I
It's a
think I had to
beautiful
learn.
building.
I had to learn to thank God for air condition. But it's beautiful in there. It's absolutely beautiful, and I'm looking for us to pack that place out. I don't think there's going to be any room because I know my church is coming to take up at least one section of that church.
Oh, it's gonna be a full house
Yes, I believe
because
so.
we got to remember, Apostle Curry's church is just about packed every Sunday now.
Exactly. And we know we're going to get our friends and visitors from around the area. And then all of our fellowship churches, our 17 churches that we have coming from all over the country. So I want you to go on and register today. Secure yourself a seat there at the conference. Right now, you can get all of the information where you can book your hotel. Now, that's Jacksonville, North Carolina, and it is a military area, and it's also Memorial Day weekend. So that means they're going to be doing a lot of traveling out and about for Memorial Day. A lot of the service individuals are going to be going to see family members. So get your tickets right away and get your rooms booked because it's going that time of year is very important for our military family and friends. And Jacksonville, you can fly into Jacksonville Albert Ellis Airport, or you will have to fly into Raleigh Durham, which is about 2 hours away for the drive from Raleigh Durham. So you want to get those tickets early because it's a smaller airport and they don't have as many flights going in there. So get your ticket now
Correct.
and register now. But I'm glad to have you on with me today because we're still talking about is it all right to be human and our humanity. And we've already settled the fact that we are human, and
Yes.
I get you can't give somebody permission to be what they were born. That's like, I am black. I'm a black American. I don't necessarily like to use the terminology African American because I was not African born. I was American born. So I happen to
Okay.
be a black American. African American would be someone from Africa who has come to America. I am born American. So I'm a black American with African descendants and a whole lot of other descendants within me. I got, I would be considered a mutt, I think, because I have so much in me. But being here, excuse me, my mouth just went completely dry. What I realize is my skin color is brown. I'm a black American, so you can't give me permission to be that when I was born. That you can't give me
Exactly.
permission to be an American when I was born in America. So we can't give people permission to say, "Oh, it's okay to be human," when that's our species. We are born human. We're not born man. We're not born, any other species. We're not fowl. We're not.
Hmm.
We're not fish of the sea. We are human. So I fervently believe that, of course, it goes without saying that we absolutely can be human because that's what we are. And as our uh, bishop has said, and our chief apostle, the doctor, has said, humanity is a gift. Humanity is a gift. It is absolutely a gift. I was thinking, I went to Animal Kingdom at Disney. And while I was there
Okay.
with my nephew Judah, we went through the safari, and I was telling my church this on Sunday, on Wednesday. And I had a friend of mine that I was saying, when I went to the different areas where the animals were, I happened to go where the apes were, and I'm watching the apes, and they were sitting there, and while they were sitting there, they literally were doing nothing. And when I say
Hmm.
nothing, I mean nothing. They literally were just sitting. Either they were sitting or they were laying. However, their sitting posture or their laying posture, they did nothing. They weren't communicating like we speak to one another daily. There was no, ape language where they were
Right.
just conversing just to converse. There was no interaction. That they weren't, you didn't see any female apes and male apes walking around holding hands. You didn't see, there was no interaction whatsoever, and they literally, all I did was watch them do nothing. And I sat there and I said, it would drive me insane, like literally, to just sit there and do nothing. No, not communicate with another another ape, or interact or anything. They don't have the ability, as I saw all of these species, they don't have the ability that we have to interact with one another, to do the things that we do. We set up businesses. We have inventions. We have telephones, helicopters, airplanes, microwaves. They can't just run to the grocery store and put food in their refrigerator. They've got to choose what day they're going to go hunt. They might not eat for an entire week. They might eat once a week, like many of them do. They only eat once a week. They don't have any of these interactions that we have. And we get to go to the movies. We get to go to work. We get to drive in vehicles. There's so many things that we actually do, and they literally sit and do nothing. And I thought about what Dr. Hall said when he said humanity is a gift.
Yes, it is.
Do you believe that that's a gift, or is it, maybe they're happier than we are doing nothing?
Well, I heard it said once like this, that doing nothing is actually doing something.
Mm. Yeah.
Because we don't understand what their stillness, what it looks like nothing, that is still a form of communication between the apes.
Mm. So it is still, so they're still communicating in their own way.
Oh yeah, but for us, in our humanity, that looks like nothing.
It looks like absolutely nothing. It looks like I would be bored to tears.
And you know what? And I'm glad you brought that up, because that's how some people look at us as Christians.
Mm.
They said they don't do nothing.
They're bored
All
to tears.
they do is go to church. All they do is preach.
And I've heard that said. Matter of fact, I grew up saying it. And I'm going to say I'm a PK. So growing up a PK as a teenager, a PK, after a while, when you're at home as a PK, you say, do we have to hear about church all the time? Because even when we would have family members come over, or, other friends, especially if they were other pastor friends who came over to visit, the conversation absolutely turned into church. Even if they came over for dinner, if they came over to watch a game, if they came over for Thanksgiving or Christmas, eventually we started talking about church. And you would hear from us all the time, do we have to talk about church all the time? So I absolutely, and now I hear that from our children and our family. They say, oh God, and this is how here we go again. When can we just be chill and not have to have a conversation that involves church? And I think that's probably the challenge with a lot of people who, like you said, who are outside of the church community. They're looking at us maybe saying, I would like to come to church, but that's all y'all do.
Right, because sometimes we've had a difficult time, I hate to speak for everyone, making God not look good.
Mm. Absolutely.
Because, you take, for instance, you go and viewing the apes. We understand those apes, some of them may have been born in, or some of them have been shipped in. So they were taken out of their environment where they were free to do whatever.
Mm.
But then when they got into um, Disney and uh, what is it called, the Kingdom.
That.
I'm trying to think of the Disney part where they come from, where you went to view them.
Oh, the Animal
They were
Kingdom.
Animal Kingdom. They were confined.
Yes.
They were restricted. So part of their being still is because they didn't have the trees to just climb up all day.
Wow.
So things were taken away from them.
So saying that real quick, because you just brought something to me. Do you think perhaps not so much God, but perhaps the church has taken some things from us?
Yes. I would truly believe that the church has taken some things because they didn't give some things to us.
Mm. Mm.
We receive the rules. We receive the restrictions. We receive the man-made convictions. But nobody taught us how to.
That's important. Now that's key right there. You gave us the restrictions, but didn't give us anything we could do.
Correct.
I think the challenge with that is part of that reason is because everything, and I spoke about this to you earlier because we're talking about humanity, and the contrast to that is worldly. Every time you heard something, you said, that's too worldly. That's too worldly, and that's too worldly, and that's too worldly. And after a while, everything is just worldly. And is worldly really a bad thing, or is it something that we created to control people, that something is worldly as opposed to sinful?
Well, I understand exactly what you're saying. One thing I was thinking about, the scripture that came from 1 John 2:16, it says, "For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, and the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, is not of the Father, but is of the world."
Mm-hmm.
So I believe that the value system of the world are those things that are birthed out of the lust.
Right.
But the three things that don't originate from the Father, all that does not come from the Father to his love and purity, is the world then from the moral standpoint.
Give me that scripture one more time. I want to pull that up. Give me that scripture one more time.
That's 1 John 2:16.
Oh,
I read that out of the King James Version.
Okay, 1 John 2:16. Okay. Yeah, I want to put that. I want to pull that up. You said, for all, now this is the New King James. It says, for all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life is not of the Father, but is of the world. So like you said, he gives us specific things that are of the world.
Yes, and I said that's the value system of the world. But yet, I think what we're trying to do today is we're drawing lines between worldliness and humanity.
Mm-hmm.
So the value system of the world and the value system of humanity is somewhat intertwined.
Right.
And we weren't really taught that because we're talking about the lust of the eye, the pride of life, and the lust of the flesh.
Which
are some of the things that our human
right.
humanity enjoys.
Right. And I think what happens is when you give people something that is open-ended, they tend to add whatever they choose to it. So lust of the flesh is very vague.
Yes.
That's very vague. Lust of the eye is also very vague. So when we say lust of the flesh and lust of the eye, that's open-ended for anyone to give their own interpretation of what is lust of the flesh and what is lust of the eye. So the challenge becomes people, for instance, who want to date, poor people in the church who are single, who want to find somebody, who want to be in a loving, caring, committed relationship. Now, God gave us that. For us, that's allowable to be in a loving, caring relationship with someone and have sexual relations and have children, and enjoy, and they have wedding ceremonies and celebrations. They have, and I'll get to that in a moment. So he says we can have that, but then if you go date somebody and hold their hand, you're lusting. it, so the people in the church are so confused as to, well, I'm trying to get a husband, or I would like to have a wife, but if I date, then I'm in a position of the lust of the flesh, and now I gotta hide it. And now because I gotta hide it, everything that's got to be behind closed doors becomes seedy, becomes challenging, and then other things are introduced because it is so hidden, and there's no conversation, can't talk about it, can't get advice from anybody about it, because you're immediately assumed to be doing something sinful.
Correct.
That's the immediate assumption that people have. And so I think that's the challenge that we now have with people, that they wind up getting involved with a lot of things that they would not have originally if it could be something that we could actually discuss and have an open.
Well, I do want to mention something, too, that when we were speaking, something you said before when we were talking about the lust of the flesh being vague. I believe it's listed here in Galatians 5:19 and 20.
Okay.
Which helps gives us a clear depiction of what it is. And it says, now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanliness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulance, wrath, and it goes on.
Mm-hmm.
And it says, of the which I tell you before, as I have also told you in times past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of God. So I believe, too, these were some of the things that's mentioned clearly in God's words.
Exactly.
But where we come from, I can't say for people who just got saved the last 10 years and been in the world in life, but those of us who got saved, in the early, the late 80s and early 70s,
yes,
we understand that they told us about it, but they didn't teach us the process.
Right. And let's be honest, they added so much more to this, because you gave a very specific list, and I'm glad you pulled that up, because you gave a very specific list. But within that list, it does not say that you cannot go to a party. It does not say you can't. My challenge is, that they had parties and celebrations all throughout scriptures. They had festivals, and at the festivals, they had food, they had wine, they had dancing at these festivals. Matter of fact, Hannah went up with her husband yearly, and they were at a festival. And what it says that Elkanah gave her a double portion. It was a double portion of food. He gave her healthy food. They gave out certain portions of food, and when you got more portion, you were favored. And he gave more food, and then she goes to church because she's of great sorrow because she has no children and so on. And we can read that scripture. That's Samuel. And she goes to church, and the preacher automatically says, "Why are you here drunken?" She said, "I have neither drunk wine or strong drink. I've had nothing to drink at the party. I am a woman of sorrowful spirit." But we put into play, at least we grew up, like you said, maybe not in the last decade, but in my challenge, I was not allowed to go to a party. You were not allowed to go to a movie. Dating was out of the question. Matter of fact, there wasn't even no conversation about dating. There was no conversation. You just didn't do it. And just because two people are dating and seeing each other does not mean that they are doing one of these lusts of the flesh or the works of the flesh, which is adultery or fornication. But when it's not explained to them properly, and I thank God for a mother who explained it very well. My mother should give lesson. My mother should teach this to everybody. She was very clear about it and very open about it. So we didn't have a lot of the challenges that other people have. But when you don't explain it, when you don't have the conversation, when you don't tell them what they can do and how to do it, you open it up for them to do whatever they find to do.
Yeah, and also too, when our humanity is when it's prohibited, when we're not allowed, we got so many rules. It makes people, it challenged the human spirit to go forth and start doing things. Like you have people in the office, you say, don't take office supplies, don't do this, don't do that. You give humans too many no's.
Yes.
They're going to somehow.
They're going to break out with a yes.
It's no different than Adam and Eve.
Wow.
You know, and that's a part of our humanity.
Wow.
You know, we were created to not have limitations.
Yes.
So the more limitations that we feel, the more ways we strategize how we can make another way.
Exactly. And now it's hidden, and we forget that part, that whatever is in the dark will soon come to light. But then a lot of people, they don't want to come to church with their with the person that they are interested in, or say anything, because then people start whispering, and then judgment comes, and then when judgment comes, people, the church is full of that, and then comes the gossip. So they're not doing anything, but you've announced it and you've pronounced it and you've made these assumptions. And I don't agree with this, but a lot of people, what happens is when somebody keeps saying that they're doing something, they go and do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't subscribe to that type of behavior, because I will not be controlled by other people's thoughts and their ideas. But people will say, well, they keep saying I'm doing it, so I might as well just go on and do it then, if they're going to keep blaming me for it. And I challenge you not to do that. I speak to you now who's listening. Do not do that. Do not be controlled by the voices of people, but know that, it's human. So, go ahead, sis. What were you going to say?
I say this. I totally agree with what you're talking about. And I believe that it is so difficult now, because back in the days when our mothers were growing up, it was clear. Don't do this, don't do that. And people didn't have a problem with it, because they had enough church. They had enough services to fill in the blank.
Look, they was in church so
So
much
now-
they couldn't do nothing.
So now we have less of everything, but more problems, more issues. And for leaders today to try to separate worldliness, humanity, it is so difficult to do that, because people come from so many different eras.
Right.
And I can say, even though it was restricted back in that day, and the conviction was much more higher, because they didn't have all the knowledge and information, some of that was good.
Mm-hmm.
But today, it's like we can't separate worldliness and humanity, because people are doing everything.
I think
Now,
I think that's
example.
part of the problem, though. I think that's part of the problem, why people are doing everything. I think people are doing everything because they weren't allowed to do anything.
Yeah, and not only that, is that the preachers, they're pretty much, a lot of them are died off. A lot of our forefathers who carried the heavy convictions of, that's all they knew.
Mm-hmm.
No dancing, no going to parties, don't wear no clothes, don't wear makeup, don't wear, this. A lot of them has gone on. So now you have people from that day who didn't dance now line dancing.
Mm-hmm.
At parties and social. You're like, wow, where did they learn that from?
Because they were always doing
Who
it.
broke it down?
They were always doing it. They were just doing it where nobody could see it. And that's the challenge. They were always doing it. And that's where I was saying, what happens is now people wind up doing it behind closed doors, and it feels like something wrong. It's interesting because, and this is where, I don't know, I might get hogwashed later. I might get in trouble. I don't know. But why is it that we can't have a birthday celebration or a cookout? Is it and not hear John Legend or Kool in the Gang? Is all I'm saying. because we don't hear if something is, if it's clean, if it's not something that's using all kind of, vulgarity and all kinds of obscene things, and if it's just about having a good time, and we're just having a celebration, why can't we listen to that? So a lot of people really sincerely believe that if we don't listen to, if it's not gospel music, then we're sinning.
And like I said, it all goes back to now everybody is living according to their own eye, making their own rules.
Mm-hmm.
So you could be in the same place, same people, same church, but everybody has a different culture of how they assess how they're going to do certain things. Like, anywhere you can ask 5 people in any of our ministries. Okay, everybody go have a party. I guarantee you, there will be something said at just about every last one of them.
Absolutely.
Because you're like, where did they get this from? We have members that have been with us for the last couple of years. You have members that have been with you for a long time. They can have been up underneath your leadership. But at the end of the day, we really don't know what's in the people. We don't know what their rules are, what their freedoms are, what their humanity is.
So this is something like Dr. Hall said on last week. We've got he said we were going to set up a do a couple of conferences. Because we don't talk about it. We just say, don't do this. And we've been guilty of this in the church for generations and generations, because it goes back to saying, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. And then they're afraid to do that because you said you can't do this, you can't do this, but you didn't say I could do this. And I don't know if I could actually do this because it doesn't actually involve church, and it doesn't involve, something involving church. So can I go to the event? Can I be a part of this and still be considered saved and not be judged and be considered sinful? And I think that becomes the challenge for most people who are listening to us right now, saying, yeah, I believe I'm human and I have human nature. And thank y'all for bringing this conversation. But what does that mean? What can I do? What can I not? And I think people were saying, if somebody just gave us a list of what we can't do and then give us a list of what we can do, that would make it easier. But the challenge is we got a whole lot of the can't do. We got the can't do. It's the what we can do list that is challenged. Because you talk to one church and they say, no, you got to take that off the list. You talk to another church, they say, well, no, we can add this to the list. So it's like you said, depending on somebody's value system, depending on their experience, the can-do list becomes very confusing to everyone.
Right, and I think just to bring balance, because this is a vital question in today, I would tell people that one of the biggest factors is, where does your heart stand?
Absolutely.
It's matters of the heart now. Do you love the world? Do you love you? Do you love God? And if people can begin to understand how much of the world they really like, a lot of people got delivered and saved in my day because they didn't want to go to hell.
Right.
But they love the party scene.
But let me ask you, does loving God mean I can't go to a party?
No. No, because I'll take, for example, me and my husband, God has used us many years to go into the clubs and bars to reach people. So when we went there, our purpose was to promote, to reach souls.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you have some people that got saved, that we reached out of the club, began to change their lives, the whole nine. And I remember a dear sister said, I have my cousin is having a party, but it's at the club that I got, that I used to go to. So when I got to talking to her and began to say, I know you want to support your cousin, but I don't know if you have enough strength to go back in there
Right. And still stay safe.
and say happy birthday and not come back.
And that, right. Because every party is not inside a club.
Right.
And I think so. We have some events, whether or not, if it's like a crackhead, don't go back to if you're a crackhead, don't go to a crack house.
Correct.
If you know that you cannot remain intact, remain true to what you believe in your faith in God, and go to that party at that club, then you don't go. But then if you are a Christian person who is not doing anything sinful and has gone to that party at that club, if someone sees you there, you are automatically judged as if you are doing something sinful.
Yeah, and then the scripture lets us know, don't let your good be evil spoken of. Meaning, we have to make sure we don't put ourselves in a position to where we know people can't handle it.
So now we're back in a box.
Yeah, we're back in the box.
In a box where we can't go. Because if we're seen, you got to go and send somebody in before you to scope out the whole place to see if there's anybody in there that knows who you are or would recognize you, and you're not going to do anything unseemly, but it doesn't matter. And what you said is exactly right. So don't let your good be evil spoken of. And then it also says, shun the very appearance of evil. So now you have to choose, and I think so people can understand, choose wisely. Choose wisely. And choose where you go wisely. Choose who you are around wisely. And your purpose for going, and your purpose and your reason for being wherever you are, choose it wisely. I think as men and women of God, we do have a certain obligation that we need to be wise. Sometimes we're just not wise. Sometimes we want to do stuff and say, well, I'm grown, I can do whatever I want to do. Some things are lawful but not expedient. That's what the word says. It might be lawful but it's not expedient. So it might not be the best choice for you to do. While, for instance, you are legally able to have a Facebook page. You are over a certain age, you're over 15, you can have a Facebook page. But if you work for certain corporations, you can't have a Facebook page. Something you post can get you fired. Now,
correct.
Was it legal for you to do it? Absolutely. Were you grown enough to do it? Absolutely. Did you still get fired for it? Absolutely. So it wasn't wise. It wasn't using wisdom. So I think that's the challenge that a lot of Christians have, is doing or living a life in a balanced life and being human, and then doing so in a wise way.
And that comes too with knowing if you're sent.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people say, "Oh, I'm sent. I have to go to this party. I got to show them that I love them." Okay, so you got to go to this party. You're gonna sit there all night, and your purpose didn't edify anybody. Your presence.
No. Except for the person who you were supporting, whether it was your loved one or because I have several people who grapple honestly with inviting me to certain things because of my position. So they're like, well, I want to invite you, but I would have invited you. But so there are a lot of things that I don't get invited to, a lot of things that I'm not even privy to, and sometimes you can feel left out. Sometimes you'd be like, well, why you didn't send me an invitation? Well, I didn't think you would, go. And that becomes this balancing act that we have to enjoy our lives and then still be recognized as a mentor, a mentee, a leader, or a pastor, bishop or so on. And what I do appreciate a little bit more is seeing more pastors and leaders showing themselves at a basketball game.
Yes.
Because I like going to a basketball game, and there's nothing wrong with going to a basketball game. Will you see me in a club? No. But it's not because I cannot go and it would be sinful, because it's not smart for me to go. It's not expedient for me to go. It's not wise for me to go. Not people can't handle that. But going to a basketball game, I think it's important that we, especially as leaders, show ourselves doing things that are just common. Going to an amusement park.
Yes, that is necessary, and I believe because a lot of times the people don't see our humanity enough. Mm-hmm. They just only see us in a particular light.
Right.
We have to make sure that we shift some things around so that people can see our humanity. And that doesn't mean, we have to let them into all of our personal things.
Exactly.
Or what we're doing, the whole nine. But just being able to address, like I find a lot of times when I speak to people, I'll use my own personal examples. You can't talk to people about adultery and fornication and these different lusts of the flesh and tell them what the word says, but don't tell them how you didn't deal with it.
Right.
So I believe that's where a lot of times we omit our humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And say, hey, I remember having the lust of the eye.
And then it comes to the point where you say, it goes back to the beginning of what we said. Now it's like them looking in at the apes doing nothing. So now they're saying, I love Jesus, but y'all don't do nothing, like nothing. And so now when they see that, I love to laugh. I love to have a good time. I absolutely love to have fun. And I think if we show them that and show them that in a level of moderation. See, the problem with people is you got an inch and now you want to take a whole football field. Now,
yes.
We say, have a good time. Next thing you know, I had to stop. I literally stopped singing the song, and that song that people sing, lower, 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 lower.
Yes.
Higher, higher. We used to sing that. And I had to stop singing that song.
Did too.
We stopped singing that song because we would get to the lower, lower, and everybody just, I'm like, okay.
Break it down.
Right. It's, you got some, you give them an inch, they got to take the whole yard. So, okay, you bend down just a little bit to do, lower, lower. No, they down at the floor. You can't drop it like it's hot. Now you doing too much. You're doing too much.
But you think about it. You think about, speaking of dance, here, this is the very thing that was prohibited back in the day from dancing in church. The only dance you could do was the dance that was taught, as far as, people shouting in churches.
Right. And
everybody danced the same way.
Right. And that's not even how they danced in the Bible days. They did not dance like that.
Right. So now you have all these dances
mm-hmm.
that are taking place that I believe is such a merge.
Right.
That how is it the very thing that wasn't allowed to do but only one way is now is more that's from outside that's brought on the inside.
Now if you go to other
dancing like we're doing.
But if you go to other cultures, right. Because if you go to other cultures and you do that same lower and now if you go to Nigeria, they're going to go all the way down, but it's not in a way that seems that people are going to be looking like, oh, they trying to, get somebody's attention. And now it has become a sexual, implicit thing. You know what I mean? It's not that at all when they're done in other countries. But you're here in this culture, they drop it all the way down there. It's like, Lord. You can't do that here. So it goes back to, like you said, depends on the culture of the people, but we also have to step out and say, I think it's imperative that we start encouraging people as to what they can do so that they can live a life in church that is pleasing to God, but yet fun.
Well, what I would want to say very briefly to our listening audience today is that, in regards to we're speaking about having parties, doing different things, doing, celebrating, whether you're doing some humanity things, going to the beach, movies, going on cruises, whatever. I believe we just have to ask the question, what we doing, what is it promoting? And understanding that celebrating or having celebrations like retirements, weddings, if it demonstrates honor, hard work, ethic, endurance, these are the things that brings glory, a level of glory to God. It acknowledges heaven's ethics. And God doesn't even have to be mentioned because it's happening through the ethics. And when people understand, get out of their mind what they can and cannot do, I don't think that's really the focus.
Thank you for listening to the Proverbs 18:21 group. May it bless you and may it enhance your living. Listen, you can truly follow us on all social media platforms at Praiseologists, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We appreciate your support and your donations to help us stay on the air. God bless you and heaven smile upon you.
This is WOKB 1680 AM Winter Garden and W264DV 100.7 FM Kissimmee, the heart and soul of Central Florida.
Let's get on the bus. Miss Eddie Ruth Jackson presents a bus trip to Sanford, North Carolina, February the 26th, 2023, departing from Oakland, Florida, traveling to Sanford, North Carolina for the 73rd anniversary celebration of Slim and the Supreme Angels and the birthday bash for Big Mike. Featured artists, the Jackson Southernaires, CeCe Williams and the Spiritual QC's Lil David and the Bells of Joy, Adoration of New Jersey, Anthony Adams and Confirmation, and many more. Get on the bus for only $240. Includes your bus ride, your Holiday Inn Express hotel, and ticket price. Get on the bus. It's the 73rd anniversary celebration for Slim and the Supreme Angels and the birthday bash of Big Mike. Get on the bus. Travel with us. Sanford, North Carolina. For more information, contact Miss Eddie Ruth Jackson, 321-303-2187. 321-303-2187. Come get on the bus with us.
Streaming only on Peacock. From the mind of Rian Johnson, the writer-director of Knives Out.
Miss Gale, you've got this gift. Always knowing the truth.
I only know if something is a lie. The real trick of it is to figure out why.
Natasha Lyonne is Charlie Cale.
It wasn't an accident. I think there's been a murder.
You watch too much Dateline.
A new 10-part mystery series.
Wolves on my fender. I gotta keep moving. I have been kind of a death magnet.
Poker Face. Streaming now only on Peacock.
Let's be real. Mopping is a hassle. You have to fill the bucket, pushing a wet, heavy mop around, then cleaning the mop when you're done so it doesn't grow bacteria. A hassle on top of a hassle. Try Swiffer Wet Jet. With Swiffer Wet Jet, you start with a fresh pad and cleaning solution every time. And when you're done, you just toss the pad. Swiffer Wet Jet, the faster, easier, cleaner way to clean your floors.
Before new Cascade Platinum Plus, I would pre-rinse all my dishes because my old detergent just wouldn't get them clean. But now, I do dishes differently. A no pre-wash, no rewash, money-back guaranteed kind of different. Because Cascade Platinum Plus has double the grease-fighting power of Dawn built right in, with twice the scrubbing power, giving me a clean that lets me break all the dish rules. I just scrape, load, and I'm done. Yep, so clean. With Cascade Platinum Plus, I dare to dish differently.
Dancing crew, trip for two, nailed the final interview. Game with Doug, brand new mug. Come here, kid, give me a hug. The more you want to do, the more we want to do. New COVID-19 boosters designed for recent Omicron variants are now available. Learn about eligibility and schedule a free, updated booster today at vaccines.gov. Sponsored by Pfizer and BioNTech.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
This story is called The Ugly Truth About Timeshare. If you think you've done your family a favor by buying a timeshare, you need my help. Hello, I'm Chuck McDowell, CEO and founder of Wesley Financial Group. 10 years ago, I started helping folks cancel their timeshare. And in the process, started what's now called the timeshare cancellation industry. Timeshare is the only thing that you can buy that you can't tell me how much it's going to cost or when it's going to end. When you buy a timeshare, you give them a blank check to fill out any amount they want for annual maintenance and assessment fees. The crazy thing is, this never ends. Even when you die, your family's now going to be stuck with this burden. Stop the insanity today. Call my office now. If we take you as a client, I guarantee we'll cancel your timeshare or you'll pay nothing.
Call for your free information kit. 800-822-1490. 800-822-1490. 800-822-1490.